So the question about AUKUS is a very important one for Australia in particular. And our former Prime Minister Paul Keating has described it as a tremendous waste of money, and I agree with him personally. But I think at the outset it's important to point out that people like me, and even Paul Keating for that matter, are not taken terribly seriously by the people who make policy in Canberra, and it's just unthinkable that for them that they wouldn't go along with this AUKUS project, despite the fact that it's going to cost $368 billion, despite the fact that it's unlikely to ever be developed in the way that its supporters hope, the fact that many of these submarines will probably never arrive, certainly in the manner and time that we've been advised that they would do. And even if we did get 4 or 5 new submarines for this astronomical price, they actually have the kind of effect that the supporters of this project hope. The idea, of course, is that somehow this is going to quote-unquote deter China and change its foreign policy and strategic policy. But in reality, if Australia has a handful of these submarines, if and when they ever arrive, because they won't arrive for decades, of course, by which time many of these issues may have been resolved one way or another. So for all of these reasons, AUKUS is likely to be an unrealizable project, despite the amount of money that Australia's spending on it. But it will also reinforce the idea that Australia will spare no effort and no amount of money to secure its alliance relationship with the United States, despite the fact that Australia has fought a series of unproductive wars with and on behalf of the United States in the past, and despite the fact that the United States continues to make what are arguably bad policy decisions and bad strategic decisions in the Middle East and other places, which Australia goes along with. So there are major questions about the impact on Australian sovereignty, but there are also major questions about Australia's willingness to spend money that it doesn't really have on a project like this, when there are lots of other things in Australia that money could be spent on, like social housing for the many people who don't have somewhere to live at the moment, or doing something serious about climate change in this country, for providing free education possibly of a sort that the policymakers who are supporting the AUKUS project benefited from themselves in former times. So for a variety of reasons, I think Paul Keating is absolutely right. This is a terrible project and a terrible decision. The good news is that these submarines are unlikely to ever arrive, in my view, and the whole thing will come to be seen in the future as a terrible waste of money and a bad policy decision.